Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. And today I have a very special guest onto the channel, my wife Bhavya. And Bhavya is a DevOps and cloud engineer who has a very good experience. And today we'll try to interview her. I'm actually nervous interviewing Bhavya. So we'll try to interview Bhavya and try to see how she will answer our questions. And I'm very sure that most of the subscribers and the viewers who are watching this, you can get a lot of insight from our discussion. So watch the interview till the end. So it's more of a mock interview, and I'll also try to record the answers using a tool, and I'll try to share that information on the Telegram channel. So if you are not on our Telegram channel, then just definitely click the link in the description, and you can get the discussion entirely, whatever we are talking. Okay. So now, Bhavya, why don't you introduce yourself to our subscribers?
So, hi. Firstly, thanks for inviting me to the channel. So, myself, Bhavya. I overall have an experience of 7 years with DevOps and cloud. And I actually work on various tools for build and release engineering, even automation and orchestration. So, currently, I'm actually working on a product-based company as a DevOps and cloud engineer, where my primary responsibilities are building CI/CD pipelines and integrating multiple stages into the pipeline. So I deal with so many teams. So we do write CI/CD pipelines for applications. There are multiple stages like unit testing, static code analysis, and we do create images, publish images. And I'm even responsible for automation of infrastructure on cloud using Terraform.
Okay.
Apart from all these, I do work on Ansible, Python, and shell scripting. So this is a brief intro about myself.
Okay. So, like, because you have talked about all of these things, like, what is your strong zone, or on a day-to-day basis, out of all of these things, what do you work regularly on?
So I generally do have mostly like CI/CD tasks. We do get tasks even on automations. So it depends on the team's like requirement and the release that they need to done in the specific sprint. So mostly 70% we do write pipelines and 30% we do testing, and we do even write the CI/CD YAMLs. And whenever there is an automation task or anything which is related to our infrastructure, Ansible or whatever that is required, we do even those tasks as part of our sprints.
Okay. Okay. So do you support a single development team, or is it like multiple development teams?
No, it's a multiple development team.
Okay. Okay. So because you have talked about like 70% of your work is on CI/CD, like, can you just give us a brief overview on what is the CI/CD process and any CI/CD pipeline that you have implemented?
Yeah, sure. So in our organization, we mostly use GitLab as our source management tool.
Okay.
So whenever a developer commits any changes to GitLab, we have configured GitLab pipelines on the rules section, which is there in the CI/CD YAML. So whenever developer commits, we do have a pipeline triggered for that, and that is part of CI, which is continuous integration. So we do have multiple stages in that CI. So the first stage was to execute unit testing and the static code analysis. Once that is done successfully, we build the application. So basically, in our case, we build an artifact. That artifact now we actually put inside a Docker image.
Okay.
And we actually scan that Docker image for any vulnerabilities that are present using a tool called 3V. Okay. So once that is scanned and it is free from all the vulnerabilities, we take the Docker image and execute our end-to-end testing. Because we are basically using Java-based applications, and we use a Java framework which is called Jinko for running end-to-end tests. So once that is also done, we actually take this Docker image and push into the Docker registry, which is our private Docker registry. And this Docker image is later taken by the Argo CD, which we use as CD, which is continuous delivery tool, which is a GITOPS based application, and we deploy this into the Kubernetes cluster, which is on EKS using this Argo CD.
Oh, okay. So your target platform is Kubernetes, and
yes,
you basically deploy the YAML manifests, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'm very interested. Basically, I'll come back to that part. But
Okay.
before that, you talked about private Docker registry, right?
Yes.
So how do you handle this sensitive information? Like, because when you have a private registry, you must have some credentials for each user or the service account that you're using for the pipelines. So how do you preserve this information from not getting exposed or not getting leaked?
Yeah. So initially we used to use the settings. Under settings, we actually have CICD variable section in the GitLab project.
Yeah.
So only the owner of the project will be able to access the settings section. So that is how it is restricted with the people. But later on, we actually moved to vaults.
Okay.
We have a vault service in our organization. We can actually request a namespace under our name so that whatever secrets we have, we can actually store it in the vault. Wherein that vault configuration, we actually will keep all the information in the YAML file so that we can read all the secrets using the variables name that are tagged with the secrets. So if it is like name Bhavya, which is stored in vault, we just call the variable name as name in the YAML file. It will actually retrieve the value of that secret.
Okay. And how did you integrate this vault with your pipeline?
We do have that vault. It's a plugin which actually supports GitLab.
Okay.
So whatever vault information in what port it is exposed, those all details will be given in the YAML file.
Okay. And this vault, do you have it running in a container or is it running in an EC2 instance or somewhere?
That is actually like maintained by another team. So we just request a namespace under our name. I'm not pretty sure how exactly they're doing that, but from our end, we just actually request a namespace from where we can put that details.
And do you have a different namespace for each project team that you're supporting? Because you're supporting different development teams. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have different things because not to club every team secrets. So we do actually request the namespace names according to the teams so that we'll have a secret like depending on the teams, we do that.
Got it. And these pipelines that you are talking about, right? Because this is a very complex pipeline that you have explained. You have all the stages that are involved. And is this pipelines common for all the environments? You have dev, staging, prod, or you have different pipelines for each environment? The reason why I'm asking this question, but the reason why I'm asking this question is because many people create a same pipeline. Many people have different pipelines. So in your case, how did you organize it?
So we do support for multiple teams. So for team, I'll actually now talk about a team. For team, we generally have dev, staging and prod. We do this for multiple teams. So so generally whatever, the pipeline flow explained, that is for the dev pipeline we have in place.
Okay.
So let's say if there is any commit that has been done by a developer, the GitLab pipeline will be triggered and start the CIE process. So we run multiple stages, like as I explained. So apart from dev, we do have for staging and prod. This dev pipeline will run on daily basis. Whatever commits that is happening on daily basis, this dev pipeline will be running and it will check all the things like which I mentioned. So apart from this staging pipeline will run actually once in a week. So we actually club all the commits that happen in the weekly, and then we actually run on the staging. That staging and prod are very similar, just on the resources, staging are less than prod, but we do have a similar pipelines with staging and prod. So this prod will be running once everything on the staging looks fine, then the deployment will goes to prod.
Okay. So coming to this prod, do you run it from a release branch or do you run it from how do you have it? How do you handle that?
So whenever we have some release tags like 1.x.x, we create a branch with that corresponding tag. And even in the YAML file, we match that job to run only when the release tag is created. There is a specific section in GitLab. We can do that using run on only tags. So whenever the release tag is created and triggered, all the prod jobs which are on the final stage will execute on the prod environment, and then it is ready for deployment.
Okay. So this GitLab run entire configuration that you are talking about. So do you use self-hosted runners or do you use any dynamic runners or whatever? How do you use it?
We use runners on EKS, so it's auto-scaling runners. So we do have self-hosted runners, a couple of self-hosted runners, but we are actually moving out of those, and we are actually moving to auto-scaling runners because of security. As we know, there is a security thing that will be exposed in DIN runners on self-host. So as we need to give root privileges for corresponding jobs to run, so we are moving away from them, and we are actually changing all our runners to auto-scaling runners.
Okay.
Which are hosted on AWS.
Okay. And like this self-hosted runners, you are talking about the DIN thing, right? So is it like a Docker in Docker setup that you had?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. And
so
because you're running, yeah, go ahead.
So there are some jobs which they require Docker in Docker. So for those jobs, we restrict to use Docker in Docker runner. Even we do support Windows runners, and even we support normal non-Docker in Docker runners. So it depends on the use case of the user jobs. They will tag their corresponding jobs with a corresponding runner.
Okay. Makes sense. So you are currently moving from the self-hosted runners to the dynamic runners, right?
Yes.
Okay. And coming to this question here, how do you configure this EKS or the Kubernetes setup? How did you configure that?
So the whole thing integration, the integration with Kubernetes, we basically do with Argo CD, which is again a GitOps tool, as I told you before. So we add Kubernetes cluster as a cluster in Argo CD UI or CLI. So it provides a way of adding multiple clusters, right, in Argo CD setup. And once we actually add this cluster and we verify the connection, and because we do have several environments like dev, staging, and prod, so depending on the Argo CD that is triggered, the CICD pipeline process, the artifacts and the Kubernetes cluster manifests are deployed into the Kubernetes cluster.
Okay. Okay. And again, are you using GitLab for storing this Kubernetes YAML manifest?
Yes.
Okay. So Argo CD is looking at that GitLab manifest.
Yes.
Is it the same repo or a different repo that you have for source code and manifest?
We have the same repo, but it again depends on if we have multiple, we do support for multiple teams, right? Yeah. So the projects for teams will vary because all don't work on the same application.
And coming to the EKS, if we go back to EKS one more time. So how did you secure your EKS? Like who has access to your EKS?
Yeah, so we actually had this additional layer of security. We configured this Argo CD with a very strict role-based access control. Okay. We have integrated our organizational identity provider with Argo CD so that only authenticated and authorized users can log into that Argo CD. And we have also segregated projects for each project team, not to actually club everything in one place.
Okay, so it's strictly Argo CD only who is doing the deployments on the Kubernetes. Like no one can manually access your
deploy it. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you have that strict configuration that is done.
Yes.
Very nice. And coming to this entire thing, because you have talked right from GitLab to Kubernetes and you have integrated a lot of things, secrets management, Argo CD, EKS security. So what was, if I ask you, what is one of the challenges that you faced while you are doing this entire integration? How do you answer that?
So I actually started my career with Python developer, and then I moved to DevOps. Learning all the tools in DevOps is for sure a major challenge. And even when I onboarded GitOps, so learning Argo CDs and entire CICD process, EKS, and everything was a learning process. And it's a big challenge because the number of tools that are in DevOps are very vast, and we need to learn every day because there are new modules coming in Terraform or Ansible. Yeah. So we need to keep learning every day. So that I actually say it's a big challenge because we need to learn every day. So there is no stopping for that because all the tasks we get, and we don't know what exactly the task will be tomorrow. So we need to keep referring documentation. We need to keep referring the new modules which are in market, and we need to keep referring the tools which are using versus which are new in market. So you need to work every day.
Okay. If we shift our gears slightly from this entire CI/CD, Kubernetes, Docker to AWS. So what are you doing on AWS? Like how are you automating your infrastructure on AWS? Are you using Terraform?
So, yes, we use Terraform for all the automation that are going on cloud, even for the runner setup, even for the EKS clusters. And whatever if we actually want to test, we do spin a test machines. We do spin a couple of machines for testing. Even that we do using Terraform.
Okay. So one major challenge that I ask everyone is like when you are using Terraform, like it's not very team friendly unless you do certain configurations. Like you cannot store your Terraform entire things in a Git repository because it's a stateful thing, right? Entire thing is dependent on a state file, which is very, very sensitive. So as a team, because you are working in a team, how do you handle Terraform?
So as I said, we are actually working in a team, right? So we had decided to use a remote state backend in the Terraform, and that we are using S3 buckets as a remote backend state, and we have integrated this S3 bucket with DynamoDB. So our state file will be in S3, and it will be logged by the DynamoDB, so that no one can actually work unless someone has completed working on that corresponding Terraform script. And then once that is done, it will be unlocked, and next person will be able to work on that.
Okay, so you are using DynamoDB for locking and S3 buckets for remote state.
So yes.
Okay, good. And if you are doing everything using Terraform, then why do you need Python? Because you told that you are also using Python. So can you give us any practical use case, or why are you using Python?
So we use Python mostly, like I am saying, right, we generally use GitLab as a major source control machine. So we do have a couple of releases for every 2 weeks in the GitLab. So we do before deploying that GitLab version, we do actually test how stable is this version of GitLab. So for that testing purpose, we do have separate like couple of 50 test cases that need to be tested before deploying any new GitLab version. So we automated the whole process of automation things in Python. So we wrote all the test cases using Python. So that is where major automation tasks which are used to deploy, we write in Python. So that is where we use Python a lot.
Anything in AWS where you're using?
So even we use Lambdas for monitoring purposes like logs. We get a 5x6 errors whenever some GitLab application is down or whatever source. We do create alarms. We do check the volumes. We do check the EC2, storage on the EC2 machines, because if it is full, no other job can execute properly on the GitLab application where it is deployed. So for all this in place, we do write Python scripts to check all the statuses of all the machines.
Okay. So you're also using Lambda functions in Python.
Yes.
Okay. And how about shell scripting? Because you are also using shell scripting. So
Yeah.
is it like for monitoring node health or something, or?
So we have a couple of shell scripts which are in place. So every day it's like similar cron jobs. So it will execute on similar time. It will actually remove all the temporary files which are actually created during the whole day process of applications.
Okay.
So there are a couple of shell scripts. So we just check the process, whatever it is in place, and if it runs at the corresponding timer every day, so whatever temp files which are created in the whole day, it will remove using that script. So the newly scripts which are writing now, we are actually not using shell. We actually transfer ourselves to Python. So whatever need happened, so we are actually writing everything in Python. So the older scripts are still in shell.
But one question is, why not Ansible? Because you also know Ansible. Like, why can't you put these things in Ansible so that it can automate multiple environments, right? Multiple easy environments.
We are actually looking at that angle even. So we do have Ansible scripts in couple of spaces, like we do have like the status checking for all the machines, and we do receive that as Slack notifications. We do have in place Ansible scripts, but not for the wide range. But we are actually, whenever there is real use case for that, for sure we'll accumulate that into our pipeline for sure.
Okay. Awesome. I just have one final question. That is again related to Kubernetes. You said that your applications are deployed in Kubernetes, right? And you are using this entire release-based pipelines, whatever it is. Let's take example of release-based pipeline. You have triggered a release-based pipeline. Your application is deployed in production. Now, if I ask you, how is the traffic flowing? If I'm an end user and if I want to access that application inside EKS cluster, how is the traffic flowing inside the request that I'm making? How is it going inside the EKS cluster and accessing your application?
So as I said, our applications are deployed in like Elastic Kubernetes Service on AWS. So we expose these applications as Kubernetes service, and we create ingress configurations for each of these applications.
Okay.
And we have an ingress controller, and this ingress controller is typically watching for ingress resources and the rules that are configured on the ingress. Ingress resources and ingress controller. So actually, ingress controller acts as a reverse proxy to the Kubernetes cluster. So whenever someone tries to access the application, so they will hit the application with the context part of the application, right? So then the ingress controller is the one which actually receives the request from the VPC, and it will send back depending on the ingress rules that are configured.
Okay.
So
But totally.
we are actually host-based and a path-based routing on the cluster, the Kubernetes cluster. So whenever someone tries to access our website or the domain name followed by the context route, so the ingress controller reserves the request and sends request to the concerned pod, the application which it sits on the pod. So that's how it works.
And what ingress controller are you using?
We are using Nginx.
Okay, Nginx ingress controller. Right. So this entire thing again is specific to the cluster. Like you have production, you have staging, and you have dev, right?
Yes.
So again, like the resources and the high availability of these controllers, is it dependent on production to staging to dev? Are they different?
Yes, it differs for sure, because the staging and prod will be like high availability clusters, and the dev will be it won't be like we don't have those all features available on the dev, but we do have a very plain cluster on dev.
Okay. And apart from this, are you also using any other resources like Cloudwatch, or are you using anything in the VPC area? If you are using Cloudwatch, like any example of why you are using a Cloudwatch service in AWS?
So we use Cloudwatch a lot because just to store all the logs from the GitLab application. So whenever user if some user reports that they are getting some 5xx error or 443 errors or whatever error it is, so we generally go through the logs using we do have that log insights where we can actually extract the logs. What problem he's facing, or we do have the dashboards. How many commits a user had done, and we actually extract the whole thing using that AWS Insights.
Got it. So all this CloudWatch and things, or are they automated, or like you do it through the AWS UI?
No, we do it through AWS. There are a couple of alarms that are set. If any 5xx error happen, we do get the Slack notification, but we do go to the logs and check why exactly it happened. So what is the error that actually caused 5xx, because that is something internal errors, right? So we do debug and what exactly it is happening. It happens sometimes due to background jobs, or it may happen due to some time the application is down because all the pods got crashed at a time, right? So we do check even the logs.
Okay, I think that's all I have. And thank you for coming onto the channel, spending your time with all of our subscribers. And I'm very sure it was very insightful as well. Many people might have learned from your experience in DevOps and cloud. And in future, I would like to see you more on the channel and do more such videos for us. Thank you so much, Bhavya.
Yeah, thanks for inviting. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
See you.